Thank you very much. How's it going, Wake Forest? Well, let's get a little energy here. Here we go. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Griffin Spolansky, and I'm the founder and CEO of Mezcla. And I want to talk to you guys today about accountability and ownership and how that relates to entrepreneurship and small business. All right, so we're going to start with my journey at UVA. I was a walk-on in 2019, I was a walk-on in 2016, and it was a really stressful period for me. I actually just transferred from Colgate, and I didn't play lacrosse at Colgate, and I made the team after 4 weeks of working extremely hard. And I was in the gym one day, and a senior on the team actually called me out. He said, "Let's go, man, pick it up." And to me, I was really frustrated. His name is Jason, and I was really frustrated. I was working so hard. 4 weeks in, finally made the team, and literally the first week after I made the team, this kid calls me out. To me, all I could think about was being angry. Why did he do this? And I just harbored that for, honestly, months. But what I realized looking back is that Jason's comment pushed me to not let my guard down, even if it was just for 30 seconds a minute, to not let my guard down and to make sure that if I saw others doing what I was doing, slacking, even just for 30 seconds, I would call them out. 2 years later, we ended up winning the national championship. And it was all because, look, we had great talent, but a lot of it was because accountability and ownership. We had a new coach in 2016, and at that point, we were a top 20 team in the nation or so. 2019, pretty similar talent, but truthfully, the difference was the mindset of our players. How could we push each other to be better? How could we push each other to do better? And how can we all come together as a team? And what I realized looking back is that's exactly what Jason was trying to do. He wasn't calling me out. He wasn't trying to be rude to me. Honestly, all he was trying to do was show me that I had ownership. He was a starter, I was a walk-on, but he showed me, with just that one comment, that I was important. He easily could have let me slack. He easily could have let me do whatever I wanted to do. But by calling me out, he showed me my importance on the team, and I thought that was really special. That same year, my senior year, I actually came up with the idea for Mezcla, which is my protein bar business. I was in a social entrepreneurship class at Virginia, and that class, we had a bunch of speakers, much like tonight, probably 5 to 7 speakers. Each speaker took 10 minutes or so, kind of pitched us their idea, told us what they were doing, and then left the class. Coco Sotelo was one of the speakers. She was from Mexico, and she had a small granola business. What she was doing that I thought was really cool is she was taking ingredients from her hometown in Mexico and actually integrating it into her granola. So she gave the whole pitch, told us about what she was doing, and then she actually left the class. When she left the class, the next speaker came on, and I thought this was my opportunity. I wanted to introduce myself to Coco. I wanted to talk to her about my thoughts on what she was doing, how cool I thought it was, and I wanted to ask her if I could get involved. So I ran outside of the class, and my teacher probably docked me a few points on my GPA because of that. But we had a great conversation. It was 2 minutes. I said, "Look, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I want to chat further." She was excited. She said, "Let's meet next week." Next Tuesday, we met at a coffee shop, actually. So literally a week later, we met at that coffee shop. I learned more about what she was doing. I pitched her my idea. I thought, I didn't really know, but I thought bars move faster off of shelves than granola. Granola is typically a higher purchase price point on shelf. Granola also isn't as convenient of a snack. So I pitched her the idea behind bars. But I thought as well, let's keep what you're doing. Let's keep the idea of integrating these cool, unique ingredients, because when you look on the shelf, typically you see pretty bland, boring flavor names, right? You see chocolate and double chocolate and peanut butter. I wanted to do something different, and I thought what Coco was doing was exactly that. So she was pretty excited about the idea, and one thing turned into the next, and that first meeting turned into us actually meeting every night for 3 or 4 hours trying to perfect this protein bar, which we ended up calling Mezcla because it's all about that mixture of flavor and textures and ingredients that we were talking about right when we first met at that coffee shop. So we're about a month or 2 in. My teammates are, going to class for a few hours a day, probably 4 to 5 hours a day, probably not as much as they should. Then they're at the lacrosse facility for 4 to 6 hours a day. And then after that, they're going home and hanging out with their friends, playing video games, right? Just doing what most normal college students do. And I was over at Coco's house 4 nights a week for 4 to 6 hours, just literally focusing on how we could make this protein bar. It was super, super frustrating at first, to be honest. We would make an amazing product, and then 2 weeks later, it would go rancid, it would be moldy, it wouldn't taste good. And I remember like I'd bring bars to my teammates, and they were just like, this is terrible, like I don't know what you're doing, just like get a real job. And you know, it was tough because I had to hold myself accountable in the classroom, on the field, both to myself because I wanted to be playing, and to my teammates because I wanted to win, and then also to Coco. She had a family, you know, she had a real job. I didn't want to be wasting her time. So there were points where I was like, do I really want to do this? But I did. I didn't want to give up. So we had to figure out what the next steps were, and we honestly ended up taking advice from people that were a few years ahead of us at that point, and they ended up helping us commercialize the product and really get it to market. So we launched the brand in August of 2020, and I didn't know the first thing about business, honestly. I knew we needed a really good product. I knew we needed something differentiated in the market, and I knew we needed a good team as we scaled. But at that point, I was so far off. Like in this picture, that's my sister who's helping me basically for free, and my girlfriend who helps me for free all the time, even to this day. So you know, I'm thinking about this team, but we're not even there yet. So the first thing I'm like, we need to do is find advisors who can really help us. Advisors who can, one, hold us accountable, right? And two, show us the path forward and teach us what we don't know, because there's a lot we don't know even to this day. So we brought on a few amazing advisors, and what they really did for us is, in the beginning, I had people telling me, you know, when you raise money, because we had to raise money. This is a super capital-intensive business, and at first, I had a few friends telling me, other founders, telling me, just kind of fudge your numbers, right? Like, if you're going to do $1 million in the first year, or if you think you're going to do $1 million in the first year, project 3 million, right? Year 2, if you think you're going to do 3 million, project 9 million. So I had people telling me, like, you know, you're going to sell the business in 4 years, $100 million, right? That just show investors that they're going to be really excited. And this was in 2020, and the market was pretty frothy with capital at that point, and they were raising money really easily, you know, these other founders. And I couldn't raise money. It was really hard. Like, I was 22, I was pretty intimidated. I'm going out to, you know, successful older individuals trying to get this capital in the door, and I couldn't do it. And all these other founders were saying to me, like, what's the issue? There's so much capital out there, you have a great product, you have good growth right now, why can't you raise? And at that time, I actually couldn't figure out what the issue was. I was, you know, a little dejected. Maybe I'm not a great salesman. Maybe there's something wrong with the product. Obviously, the bar category is really saturated. But I stuck to what our advisors said. They were holding us accountable. We were holding ourselves accountable. And I said, I'm going to be honest with our projections, right? And like, all we can do is try and hit these projections. And if we do, everyone's going to have more confidence in us. Fast forward 3 more years, we've raised $7.5 million to date. And those same founders that were saying, fudge your numbers, right? Like, you're not accountable to anyone. Just say whatever number you want. That's all. That doesn't matter. You'll be able to raise money in the short term. Now they're coming to me saying, how do you raise the money? And my thing is, there's no secret sauce. It's just holding yourself accountable and making sure that others are holding you accountable. So I just think that's a pretty interesting anecdote. The last 2 pieces I'll add are, one, when building this team, you know, pretty early on, we have an amazing COO, and we were thinking about, you know, hiring out. And my big thing was, we can hire people that are really smart, really talented, but we need to hire people that feel like they have ownership in this business. And one of our first hires, we were super excited about. Really smart, great pedigree, seemed to be really eager about the position. But I would say a month in, we realized pretty quickly that work just wasn't getting done the right way. He wasn't taking enough ownership over the business. The work product wasn't as good as it should have been, honestly. And there was some sort of disconnect. So we tried to practice our radical candor, and we were honest with him and tried to hold him accountable pretty much right off the bat. And we said, look, we need you to do better. We know you can do better. That's why we hired you. Now show us. And the one note I just want to add is, part of accountability isn't just calling people out. It's showing them that they're really important and integral to an organization. We tried to do that. Hey, look, like, you're basically running all of our operations right now. You're 1/3 of our team, 33%. if you're not carrying your weight, we're in a really bad place. A year later, we have 6 people on our team, and he's the one holding others accountable. He's the one that calls me sometimes saying, look, I'm an owner of this business. I want to make sure that others are doing a great job. And I think that if we didn't nip it in the bud a year ago, we would be having a lot more issues today. And it's just like in that weight room. If Jason didn't call me out, 20 seconds of me slacking could have turned into 20 minutes of me slacking, could have turned into 20 hours of me slacking. And I think that's the same thing that happened here with this employee. We caught it really quickly. We tried to hold him accountable, but not in a negative way, in a positive way, right? Like, you're extremely important. We need you. Let's go here. And that's really what ended up happening. Now, like I said, 6 employees, and I think for us, it's all about that 360-degree accountability. So I want to be held accountable too, right? Just because I was maybe one of the people that made the decision to hire these people doesn't mean that I shouldn't be held accountable. If I don't do something, I want someone to call me out, and I want someone to push me to be better and to do better. This is some of our team right here. The thing that I'll end on is accountability should stretch into all aspects of your life. I have an amazing girlfriend who, probably gets mad at me a lot because I'm less than amazing in a lot of ways. I have, amazing siblings. I'm the oldest of 5. I have amazing family, and I think that, if I'm sitting up here saying, you need to be accountable to yourself, you need to be accountable to others, you need to hold others accountable, and I'm not doing that in my personal life, that's a really big mistake on my end. And it's something I like to say to my family and to the team at Mezcla, is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I hope that resonates with you guys tonight because it's really important. Even little things, like even waking up and making your bed. That's something we spoke about a lot at Virginia, but just the little things are really important. So when my 15-year-old brother comes to me and asks me a question, if I tell him one thing and then I do the opposite, there's no accountability there, and it's something I try and focus on a lot as a person, as a teammate, as a leader. So I guess what I'll leave you guys with is, as you guys go about your daily lives, whether you're on big teams or small teams, whether you're in fraternities or sororities, right? I think it's really important that you hold others accountable, again, in a positive way, but you show them that they're important and integral to any organization that they're a part of. And when they're slacking a bit, that's okay. I would just encourage you to say to them, let's go, man, pick it up. Thank you.